Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The freshly minted heavyweight Oleksandr Uysk has entered the Boxrec heavyweight standings at number 4. He is ahead of Tyson Fury, who is one spot behind at number 5. Andy Ruiz Jr. at number 1, number 2 Deontay Wilder, at number 3 Anthony Joshua from the point system. And you can see here on screen the number of points that they have respectively. Now, this is a situation that I'm sure that there's going to be a bundle of comments that are going to be left before people have even got to this point in the video, the early stages of it. How can he have so many points and how can he be ahead of Tyson Fury? So the simple explanation is, from the way that Boxrec ranks fighters, it's all the same. They have point system allocation, etc. through their algorithm. Oleksandr Uysk is effectively carrying over a bundle of points from his cruiserweight days. And this is not just a new thing. It's not special to Oleksandr Uysk. Other cruiserweights have had the same thing happen to them. You can see down here further at number 23, Michael Hunter, number 25, Marco Huck. And both those guys, I would note, have been higher in the standings in recent months than they are currently at 23rd and 25th respectively. But the bulk of their career has been at cruiserweight, and their points have also carried over. But Oleksandr Uysk, and you can see compared to Hunter and Huck, he has many more points. And that represents the work that he did at cruiserweight to unify the division, become the undisputed champion. And I have seen a lot of anti-Oleksandr Usyk sentiment in recent days, the last couple of weeks, as he has climbed up to heavyweight. There have been some very ignorant comments made about him and his body of work, saying that he's fought nobody at cruiserweight and that Oleksandr Usyk has basically benefited from a weak division. But that in itself fails to recognize that the cruiserweight division is actually quite competitive. It's quite a strong division. It just doesn't have the same sort of limelight that other divisions like heavyweight, 175, 160, 147 have, for example. And in Usyk's case, he was a complete road warrior. So currently 17-0. We know he's got the one fight at heavyweight against Chaz Witherspoon, and I'll come to some CompuBox stats on that a little bit later on. But the sort of work that he put in against the likes of Krzysztof Glowacki, you've got Michael Hunter, Marco Huck, Myris Bradis, Murat Gassiev, Tony Bellew. That is a fair amount of work against top competition, and basically all of it on the road. So some of the sort of rhetoric that's been bubbling around, especially from some fans of certain boxers, I know that there have been a number of Deontay Wilder fans that have been making comments about Usyk after Usyk said that he wanted to face Deontay Wilder and that he thought he could beat him. There's been a number of Wilder fans that have responded by saying he doesn't have enough power, he's too small, he doesn't have enough power, he can't win, he's done nothing in his career. But, and it's not just Wilder fans too. There's a number of boxers and their fans that have been trying to write this guy off before he even got to the weight. And now he's had his first fight, which was against Chaz Witherspoon. And we know that wasn't exactly a perfect performance, but overall, the stats tell a story from CompuBox. So that fight where he looked a little bit rusty early on, and obviously the timing wasn't there completely, but overall it was a relatively efficient performance according to the punch stats. So the final punch stat report down the see here at the bottom of your screen, Usyk, he landed 86 of 123 power punches. That's almost 70% of his power punches for the fight. The whole fight landed. His jabs, not so flash, 23.7% jabs landed, 40% of his body punches landed. So remember, he was facing a slightly bigger guy in Chaz Witherspoon who outweighed him by 25 pounds or so. And this will be, I guess, the point in the conversation where people will say, well, Witherspoon, he really was a soft touch. And that is true, but Usyk still had to go in there, get the job done, and ultimately he got him out of there after 7 rounds, wore him down. Usyk did what he normally does. He does grind his opponents down through his movement, activity, and obviously his efficiency is key in some of his fights too. And we saw that against Witherspoon. And Witherspoon has sort of stated that, Oleksandr Uysk never really hurt him, didn't land something that was so telling that he felt like he was too hurt. And he sort of said, oh, well, if I had more training, I could have beaten the guy. Witherspoon could have had 30 years to prepare for Oleksandr Uysk. He was never going to beat beat him. Even in his prime 10 years ago, he wouldn't have beat Oleksandr Usyk. He just didn't have the skill set to do so. He couldn't hang with Oleksandr Usyk. And we know that he's going to be walking into a title shot next to Oleksandr Usyk, and people will say, well, he's been gifted that. But actually, he did earn it through the WBO Super Champion status. So the WBO recognized him as a champion of real note, which he's allowed to now challenge for a title at the higher weight, which he is obviously going to do. Against who, we don't know. But I have noted this rhetoric in recent days, the last couple of weeks, as Usyk has got to the weight, that some people are just very quick to write him off. A lot of sort of negative statements, a lot of ignorant statements saying he's done nothing in his boxing career, which if you actually followed his career to any extent, you know what he did at cruiserweight was no mean feat. And obviously the World Boxing Super Series, he sort of cut a path through that and ultimately hoisted the trophy. That in itself is a major accomplishment. Does that mean he's going to be a heavyweight champion? Well, time will only tell, but he does have the tools, I believe, to go a long way and trouble a lot of heavyweights. Even some of the names where people are saying that he's too small, he can't hurt them, but he doesn't necessarily have to hurt them to win the fight. That's the thing. I mean, no one is saying that he's going to go to heavyweight and all of a sudden have this knockout power that he never had before. But Oleksandr Usyk has a certain specific skill set, and he has a specific way of fighting, which is what he's going to be carrying forward. So don't expect anything new from Oleksandr Usyk, but I do think that the way that he fights with his footwork, his speed, his efficiency, he's going to be a problem. But getting back to these standings, so, obviously Oleksandr Usyk ahead of Tyson Fury. And that does represent, I guess, Fury has got a big win in Vladimir Klitschko on his record, a couple of wins over Derek Chisora, Christian Hammer, but there's not a lot else there. That's why he's not higher on this list. So 29 fights, he's not higher because there is some low opposition on his record. And further down here, this is my guy, Joseph Parker, my favorite fighter. He's number 12 here. He's sort of the same thing as Tyson Fury. A lot of his early fights, about the first 14 or 15, very low opposition that he was facing, even though it was sort of positioned in New Zealand as competitive build-up fights in his prospect career. Those guys were clearly overmatched, and it was about building him, and it was a traditional prospect route. But because his opponents didn't have many points, that's why he's lower than the likes of, say, Adam Kovnatski, for example, who he might say that his contender level wins are on a par or better than Kovnatski, for example, but it's the other wins on the record against the lower guys that have fewer points. So Kovnatski, even though he's got fewer fights than Parker, and obviously no losses, has from a certain point in his career, the guys that he fought have been better than some of the ones that Joseph Parker fought early on. That's what's disadvantaged Parker here, because it's a accumulation of points type of game. But if we look overall, do I think that Oleksandr Usyk deserves to be number 4 heavyweight in the world right now, according to the calculations? Well, that's obviously the Boxrec, sort of how they've worked it out. I would say he's a top 10 guy automatically, and I've been consistently saying that since he decided to move to the weight. I think automatically Oleksandr Usyk is one of these guys who's going to be in contention. And I think that's why some people are a little bit sort of on edge about him and quick to be negative and quick to write him off, because maybe they are worried about what he could do to their favorite fighter, or someone in the division that they think that he shouldn't be able to beat, but maybe he can. So I think there is a little bit of, I don't want to say fear, but I think there's people who are, because there's this new guy on the block who could maybe do something, that they just want to rubbish him and say that he's nothing. And obviously the Chaz Witherspoon performance, it wasn't perfect, but it maybe wasn't going to be after a year out of the ring. That has sort of had some people, some fans, double down. But what do you make of this? Oleksandr Usyk above Tyson Fury, number 4 in the standings. Drop a comment loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.